All right, everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be looking more text talks Battletech, specifically the Amaris Civil War Part 2. Last time around, Amaris lost his shit. Yeah, let's put it that way. And by that, I mean, 1, his marbles, 2, his actual shit. The Rimworld Republic was just liberated by Kerensky, who was like, you know what, that's a nice little town you took there. I'm going to take yours. Yeah. And then it worked. Pretty well. I was not expecting that. In the sense that things worked out. That doesn't happen in science fiction. It's usually, we tried and then horrible things happen. This was, we tried and it worked out pretty well, and the people actually kind of were on our side by the end, and they gave us a parade. I was not expecting that. Now, though, we're on part 3 of part 2. I realize how weird that sounds. The Road Home. And I'm assuming if that title card inserted inside the actual video itself is anything to go by, this is where the real battle probably begins, and Kerensky starts the trip back to Terra. Yeah, this is probably where all the shit, I would say normally hits the fan, but the fan has already been overwhelmed at this point. This is when the shit gets scraped off the fan, or starts to, before something happens next. I don't really know what, but something's going to happen. So we're going to jump right in and see how this goes. And horribly likely that it'll be horrible stuff all the way through, which is going to be great from the outside. So we're going to just jump right in and look at that. You guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get started.
For years now, the heart of Starleague had been under the thumb of Stefan Amaris. His atrocities would become a bleak...
The Rimworld's Republic is fine. It's under construction. Missing. Have you seen him? Please call Starleague. Oh, God. Frowning is illegal. Report double doubts to Thought Police. This part makes sense. This part makes sense. Honestly, out of all the jokes here and all the crazy thing, hey, I just realized there's not a Golden Corral ad. Huh, first time. But more importantly, this part right here, if you see him, report to Starleague. This is a little bit of trolling I absolutely love, because all they need is a 555 number to reach them. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they're going to love having their dead leaders thrown in their face. That's going to be fun. It's just like a little bit of trolling that I actually kind of appreciate.
Mark in the history books of mankind.
The rest is just kind of normal.
Weekly,
We didn't lose.
Sometimes daily, Amaris would broadcast his message to loyal subjects of his empire, while controlling the spread of information he did not approve of. Rumors of brutality, murder, and chaos had escaped Amaris's empire at extreme cost in some cases, but there was little in the way of hard data or information. SLDF fleets and observers had tried to gather extensive information, but it came at a cost. The SDS and drone fleets were a lethal countermeasure to SLDF curiosity. Amaris in his own dispatches painted himself as the liberator of the hegemony, the conqueror of a corrupt noble house, the man who slew the tyrants of the Cameron line.
I mean, it's bullshit, but also it's engineered bullshit that he made possible, but also the guy in charge was kinda... I mean, if he didn't go full dictator immediately afterwards, everything he said would have probably been, if not true, a polite fiction people probably easily could have believed. It's just literally he went full dictator right afterwards. If he had literally not gone that far, everything he just said would have been true. I mean, to be fair, if he wasn't planning on going full dictator the entire time, he probably wouldn't have done any of that and literally engineer the situation. So it's not like it's something that would ever happen. It wouldn't. He's not in a position, and he never was in a position to get to this point if he hadn't been that kind of asshole. But I just like how the seeds of his own failure are also the things that made him succeed in his goals. It's that little duality I do enjoy, but it's right there, man.
And was now a guiding hand toward a prosperous future. Some chose to believe these lies. Others found themselves incapable of such self-deception. Kerensky took another tactic. Firstly, while gathering intelligence for the push to the hegemony, Kerensky began a PR war. Publicly, he thanked the great houses for not aiding Amaris in his criminal actions. He spread the rumors he knew, painting Amaris to be an incompetent
Okay, I love this. Because the entire time, Kerensky's been shown to be two things. One, a military genius who's really damn good at what he does. And also someone who's let the political aspects just not be on him. Because his entire aspect was, I am above the fray because I am loyal to Star League. And everyone else will respect me because I can't be fucked over by their enemies. Or more specifically, I can't be used by their enemies to fuck over them. Which is in itself a political position. But we've never actually seen him use that authority. It's been military authority used well. And just common sense, which is honestly probably the craziest power to have anywhere in any form of fiction or reality. Although I'll be honest, I think it's more common in fiction than reality, and that's barely ever there. The fact that he's also now using the soft power of propaganda, that's good. Because especially since, as crazy as Amaris is, he is hyper competent. He's just crazy and then going too far. So the idea of Kerensky spreading rumors that he's crazy, well, just, yeah, I love that because it's blatantly bullshit, but also it's an aspect of power we have never, so far, at least as far as tech's shown, seen Kerensky use. And that's just, yeah, good. He's aware of it. I was worried his big downfall would be that he's not using this aspect of power, and he is. So that's actually just great.
Tyrannical and ruthless dictator.
It's not even wrong.
Interested principally in punishing those who did not fall in line. Kerensky aired Amaris' dirty laundry, showing the inner sphere who he truly was. Simultaneously, behind the scenes, Kerensky met with the leaders of the great houses. His message was simple. Get off the fucking fence and choose a goddamn side.
They're
because
not going
I'm
to,
about
though.
to drop a hammer on this asshole. Or something like that. Their
Probably
response was
actually probably about
mixed.
that diplomatic.
Lords made a laundry list of excuses for their failures to support the general up to this point.
And this is where I think Kerensky is going to run into a problem. Because as soon as you say there's a laundry list of reasons, what you're getting is, we don't want to. And we're not going to. And you could fight us, and you would win. But then you lose to everyone else. Which is basically the entire situation in most of Battletech lore, at least during the Inner Sphere prior to the clan invasion. It just seems to be a case of dogpile the winner, or the apparent winner, or the person you might think is the winner, or Comstar just fucks around. It's really one of those things. And Kerensky's probably getting really pissed at this. You know, suddenly I think this is the seeds of why he's leaving. Before we saw the first guidelines of, hey, maybe if we just got a little perspective by moving away, things would get better, like they did here. And now it's the, fuck these guys. I'm assuming that's what we're getting here.
To include inevitably the threat of Amaris conquering them if they played sides. One by one, however, they agreed to give the general some support. Some in the form of supplies.
Yeah.
Some in the form of intelligence.
Ooh.
Some in the use of bases from which to stage for invasion.
Ooh. Okay, I'm going to be completely honest. I was not expecting that actually to be a thing. Them actually giving him something useful. Intelligence, useful. Supplies, useful. Bases, useful. Not manpower. So they could say, well, he's got a gun to our head. So they're still not entirely jumping in. But I will say the people who gave him the intelligence, way more useful. Way more useful. Knowing where to shoot is a lot more effective than shooting everything and hoping a bullet hits. You only need one that way.
Needless to say, it was significantly less than full support for Kerensky's cause.
More than I expected, though.
It was at least not support going to Amaris.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that too.
Help came from a different avenue.
What?
After the general went public, addressing the need to put down the tyrant Amaris, Kerensky found a wave of volunteers. Soldiers, sailors, marines, aerospace giants.
Okay. I don't usually point this out whenever Tech does videos. I usually focus on the information, but when he's talking about getting help from other avenues, and not the great houses, but specifically the people who hear his message, listen to the swell of the music behind there. This is kind of beautiful because it's like a moment of we're coming to the aid, we're pulling our own weight, we're helping out where the people in charge who should have known better didn't. And just listen to the music.
Addressing the need to put down the tyrant Amaris.
It's just swelling as he speaks.
Volunteers. Soldiers.
This right here. This is one of the things that I don't highlight a lot, but I love it. It's that Tex is really doing a good job. And whoever's editing for Tex, I know it's been mentioned before, but I am an idiot and I do terrible, terrible things with names. I'm pretty sure I've talked to them. But whatever. This is really well edited because the music matches the tone. Tex, with his tone, is gruff. And honestly, I'm jealous of his voice, even though I know the reason he had it is for less than desirable reasons. Great on him to make something of it still. But I love how just using that bit of audio to complement his voice, to complement the story being told, shows that this is the emotion associated with these facts. It's something I really appreciate about this entire series, and one of the reasons I love it, because this is something that's done well.
Sailors, Marines, aerospace jockeys,
they choose one of the few times we just see random people of all walks of life, all different body types,
and
a smile.
Stolen equipment.
That's weird.
Totally AWOL, these units pledged to follow the general in order to set things right. Many of these men and women felt their own houses had been incredibly dishonorable and not helping the general, and so set things right by their own hands.
Honor.
Kerensky didn't turn them away and organize them into volunteer corps.
I thought what we get from this is disillusion with the great houses. But no, instead we're getting the forming basis of honor. Because these are the people who were disgusted at the lack of honor from the houses. Sorry, just so many things forming the later function of the clan. And then we get this here, and it's like, I was not expecting the part about the clans that I have the least enjoyment of being something I'm actually emotionally moved by. That's nice.
Or, by the time the invasion begun, he had 36 fucking regiments of them. Operation Chieftain, the invasion of the Terran hegemony, was launched July the 14th, 2772.
Oh,
the painstaking retaking of the Terran hegemony system from Amaris would ultimately cost millions of lives and several years.
All around,
the world's military, realizing their own homes had been destroyed and occupied, realizing that their home worlds were now fighting each other for territory burning or unlivable, made every effort to fight to the bloody end. There was no retreat for them, for Amaris's plans had never included fight an angry Russian tooth and nail for the future of the Inner Sphere. For those foolish enough to surrender, Amaris's political troops would kill them first. This was a grand defense in depth conducted across the hegemony, with the aim being to draw the SLDF into a war of attrition and slowly grind them to dirt. Kerensky's plan was expensive in manpower and equipment. The terrifying space defense systems had to be overcome.
Yeah, and this is where it gets rough. Because it looks like Kerensky knows not exactly what's going on, because I don't think the intelligence was good enough to give him everything, but he knows that Amaris set up a strong point. He knows that this is probably a war of attrition. And because Tex just mentioned it's terrifying and expensive, he's basically going, yes, I see your trap. I raise you walking straight into it with more people than you can get into it. Hot damn. I mean, on the one hand, I don't think there's any other way this could work other than going full asymmetric warfare and really trying to basically do what Amaris just did, but I'm not sure that would work, because that's something Amaris would have very good usage of, because it's literally what he just did, and they don't have 6 generations to pull it off.
And even with extensive intelligence gathering from hidden fleets, clandestine operations, and even reports flying in from the hegemony from various insurrection groups, it was to be a bloody affair. Kerensky's SLDF had been honed into a remarkably efficient fighting machine, now no longer a mere defense force, but an avenging army of an ideology. Star League and all that it represented. So long as the fleet moved and the army fought, for their fellow brother and sister, Star League was alive. Kerensky's battle plan was to cut off world after world. From the outside in, slowly, Kerensky encircled the hegemony, and he struck with purpose and precision.
Interesting.
From July 2770 to January.
Okay, normally I wouldn't apologize to say this, but really? They have a world named Addix? What, is there another world called Brothel or Whorehouse in there? I mean, sure, why not? Let's just go with it. Oh my God. Also, one of the things I do appreciate is that the slow shading of the map showing how the war is progressing. Because before, I wasn't sure what those were. They were maybe marks of trade routes. Could be. But this is actually really cool to show how it's contested, and it's just a really neat way to use it. And goddamn, do I want to get a 3D representation of the war effort, because I've been told heavily that this is just a top-down representation if you saw everything in one level as opposed to a more massive scale, which also makes more sense with the RimWorld Republics and further expansions.
2777, Kerensky took world after world away from Amaris. Amaris's forces had nowhere to run, and they fought like cornered beasts.
Because they don't have a home to go back to.
Fields, cities, and worlds. They used every weapon they had.
Scorching earth that doesn't belong to them.
Biological weapons, suicide attacks. They tried to grind the SLDF down. They used the human population as shields. They forced Kerensky to pay for progress in bodies, and take his time in doing so. Kerensky's strategy was to cut the invasion corridors into slices and put 2 armies in each. Raiding units under Aaron de Chevalier had learned much, namely that the SDS systems in place were not to be trifled with, and that the worlds were reinforced all to hell.
I was really hoping he knew this was already a thing, and it sounds like this is the part where they found out, not the initial phase, but after first contact, before they fully realized just how defended the worlds were. They probably assumed because they didn't invade right away, and now they're finding out, yeah, you know how we thought he fortressed up? Yeah, we were right. I will say, though, talking about how he's trying to cut off Amaris, yes, it makes sense, but I think this is a tactical mistake on the part of Kerensky. Not that he's wrong. I don't think he has a right move here, because there's really no way to do this other than a war of attrition, because every place is so armored that they can take a toll. You can't really just hold out and wait, because each place has its own balkanized beachhead. You can't just go for the core because jumps are a distance thing. And you can't really just wait in orbit because they could just take pot shots at you from a very heavily defended position on the ground. And I don't think he wants to go full on destroy the freaking planet immediately with overwhelming nukes, because that's kind of the guy he's fighting against. And if he started doing that, it really doesn't help, because then there's nothing to take afterwards, which seems to be a part of his design philosophy, or I guess campaign philosophy now, having done that in the RimWorlds. Probably to a lesser extent now. I just think it's something of a mistake, and an unavoidable one, because he can't really choose any other option right now. It's just a bad option out of a lot of bad options. So yeah, I'm going to give him credit for doing what he has to do and not bulking out, which I never thought he would, but it does feel like there had to be another way, and they just don't have the time or the resource to do it. And by time, I still go back to the multiple generations of asymmetrical warfare. Call it what it is. It was a warfare at that point. Just very clandestine. Yeah, there's no really good way to look at it.
To cut the hegemony apart from the outside in, to maintain constant pressure so that reinforcements could not be shuffled from one point to the next, and thereby denying Amaris the benefits of a defense in depth.
And because he probably wouldn't do that anyway, because he doesn't care about the world's he's controlled.
The invasion once it started. Otherwise, Amaris could shuffle and dig in. What they found when the invasion started horrified the SLDF. It would take the deployment of the SLDF's full 1,000 infantry regiments to conquer many built-up worlds, as Amaris had built terrifying defenses. Some worlds were no more than awful killing fields, with Kerensky unwilling to authorize weapons of mass destruction for a decisive or quick victory. When the local forces were defeated, infantry divisions earned their keep hunting down hegemony security forces, pro-Amaris paramilitaries, and brainwashed citizenry, afraid Amaris would punish them if they didn't fight the SLDF. The pace of the conflict made Kerensky fully aware that this would not end easily. He sent in forces to set up legitimate judiciaries to judge and punish those who assisted Amaris's regime.
Oh. You know, I thought the big blow here would be just how brutal Amaris was. Like, setting up the killing grounds, setting up brainwashed people who just have no other alternative in their own mind because every other thought has been beaten out. I thought that would be the real killing blow here, just to the thought that there could be a return. I think this part right here is probably the most depressing thing to happen because Amaris broke people. You don't have sympathizers and people who rebel still. You basically have people who are whipped dogs. It's not that they want to do it, it's that the concept of not helping is so absolutely terrifying at this point because anyone who thought otherwise is dead probably, or in a resistance, which some places still had, but most of them are just not going to be enough unless the SLDF came. It sounds like this entire judiciary aspect, though, is going to find everyone is a sympathizer because everyone else is dead. And they're all horribly beaten down. And this is going to be probably the most depressing thing because they're not going to win. They can't win hearts and minds when Amaris went full-on evil empire. You can't save a populace that is in itself basically waiting to self-destruct. And that might not even be a bad thing because it sounds broken beyond repair. This is probably going to break him even harder than the war.
And
you can see there's no coming back.
Excesses. He sent in the SLDF Logistics Corps, now well-trained to strip useful materials to replace his stockpiles. And he ordered garrisons left to ensure that the chaos of the Rimworld's Republic collapse would not repeat in the hegemony. Kerensky arrived, conquered, and left functioning governments and infrastructure in his wake. This was not a blitzkrieg to tear down a government. This was a true liberation. Still, the cost would be inhuman.
Honestly, it probably would have been safer if he had done the blitzkrieg, because every person he leaves behind is most likely ineffectual, if honest. I mean, there's always a chance that they'll go full-on evil and maintain control through basically following Amaris' tactics, which isn't good. But again, with a broken people, that... Yeah, this is probably a mistake. It probably would have been better if he just blitzkrieged in and tried to clean things up afterwards. This seems like he's stretching himself, though.
Human lives. The Star League Defense Forces found the drone ships and space defense systems were manned by elite teams now all too familiar with their operations. Despite thorough strategic considerations, the SLDF found itself utterly incapable of attacking the SDS systems without serious losses. Each and every attack was at enormous cost, losing ships they could no longer replace. Groundside, Amaris' forces would respond to invasion by falling back to extensive fortifications and using every weapon at their disposal, to include nuclear warheads and chemical attacks. Amaris' troops were content to burn a world, its population, and even its future habitability to cinders to deny it to the SLDF.
It's literally a scorched earth policy.
Denying a world was not that grand a gesture for someone who'd already lost their home. Each of these battles cost the SLDF personnel and time.
I just want to point out, and I know I've mentioned it's a scorched earth policy, and Texas even just said that it's not a grand loss because they've already lost their home. It's even more than that. I wouldn't just say that this is a smart defensive move because they have nothing to go back to, so denying resources is the most important thing right now. I would also say there's a bit of vindictiveness here because it's not that Amaris cares about this. He doesn't. He's already fucked over everything. It's that these are basically the defenders who came from here. So by destroying these worlds, he's still hurting Kerensky. He's hurting all the people fighting against him. And he's getting to spit on the people he was fighting against in the first place, the Camerons and all of the hegemony, because this is still their territory. Even if it's his now, fuck them. He probably is happy about this outcome. Maybe not that he's losing it, because he would probably much rather have it, because power and assholery. But watching it burn probably puts a smile on his face just as much as every other crazy, maniacal thing he does. It makes sense in a very annoying way that he would resort to this, because Kerensky did a good job of cutting off his power base. And Amaris is probably okay with going down with the ship if it means fuck all of y'all. You wanted to win back and take everything back. There's nothing left. I have a feeling I know why this is not going to end with Star League being reset. Because there's probably going to be a lot. I don't know what happened to the Terran hegemony in the future. I assumed it just got absorbed by all the other houses. And for the places where Kerensky probably left people behind to do that, maybe. I honestly think that's probably going to be more of his stake. He probably should have just blitzkrieged, but that's just me thinking conserve your forces, cut them off, and hope they don't get back up, at least as far as enemies go. Because I don't think Amaris is going to try and reach out to them, because I don't think he cares enough. And because I assume they're probably just going to blow up as soon as he leaves. But also because it feels like they're not fighting an enemy, but they're fighting against the possibility the enemy is just going to flip the table. They're not trying to win. They're trying to win fast enough, and they're not moving as fast as they should at this point, because now that it's started, yeah, flipping the table is probably what's going to happen.
In many cases, to capture worlds heavily scarred by total war. Despite successes, the war was slowing considerably. By 2774, the operation was grinding to a halt. They'd conquered 100 worlds, but the pace was slowing exponentially. Total casualties were at 10% across the SLDF from the start of this campaign.
Damn. Oh, and that's across
higher
everyone
in
they just
systems
got.
guarded by SDS systems. No matter their strategy, planning, or talent, the pace of invasion was slowing. Often enough, the SLDF encountered horrific conditions among the population, which they then had to safeguard and look after, eating into shrinking supplies. Garrisoning these worlds depleted manpower, and taking care of a population was a further complication. But Kerensky saw it as his duty, and did not shrink from it. Further, Amaris' troops had...
Okay, I just want to point out just how brutal this part right here is. Normally, the images he chooses are thematic and pretty cool, but talking about how it's duty, and then you just pull back from the refugee ships to the home sweet home plaque and the family pictures, and it's just like, oh, yeah, and you only pull back to see that right as he says duty is when you finally get the most image of this. The matchup of the text, the words, and just brutal in its effectiveness, but also highlighting what I said before, where it is wearing the SLDF down. It would have been inhuman and probably downright evil to leave these people to suffer, but it also is leaving other people to suffer longer. I don't think Kerensky's wrong. He's doing the smart thing to make sure he's not getting an enemy to his back. I don't want to imply he's not, because I don't think... Kerensky's in a situation right now where, as it's being depicted in the lore, he doesn't have good options, and he's choosing the bad option that at least lets him do what he thinks is right, which is probably the entire point he's fighting back. But also, like Tech said, it's depleting manpower, it's slowing him down on top of everything else slowing him down. And these worlds are basically ravaged at the end, so there's really nothing they can salvage from them. And this was definitely something Amaris was planned out the entire time, because he doesn't care about these people or the worlds, because that was the point. It's power and revenge. And fuck all y'all, this is my shit now. If I can't have it, no one can.
God as his duty.
Makes sense, but it's annoying.
And did not shrink from it. Further, Amaris' troops had now formed the opinion in mind that the best sort of shield was human, and forced civilian populations into internment camps, booby-trapping them thoroughly so any who ran or were careless died in a messy fashion. This was how Amaris' men often managed to fall back, by throwing civilians and hostages into the mix and leaving the SLDF to solve the moral quandary. The SLDF was almost at breaking point, until Amaris made a rather fateful decision.
What?
He ordered abandon what he considered to be indefensible worlds without SDS systems or, to his taste, extensive fortifications. He pulled his forces back and reinforced what he had, concentrating his armies.
Oh, I know where this is going. He's concentrating on the hard points. And because, like I mentioned, he doesn't care and this is scorched earth, The reason it's called a scorched earth policy is because when it's used, you literally destroy everything that could be useful. The worlds, the population, any defensive measure. This is full-on genocide against multiple worlds, probably. He's essentially taking a book out of 40K, and I can't believe I'm saying this. He's probably killing more people than are killed in 40K this way. Like, normally 40K is over the top, but realistically, when they talk about exterminatus and, just the massive worlds they sacrifice, they don't actually kill that many. It's one of those weird things where 40K covers a lot of swaths of time and place, but they don't usually focus on more than a couple worlds at a time. What Tex just said here was probably 10 to 20 worlds, and I'm hopefully high barring it, but I got a sneaking suspicion in my head that might be on the low side. Yeah. These are also not sounding like depopulated worlds, because they weren't the ones that built up and he focused on. They were probably the ones he was like, this is nice, I'll take it. But didn't focus on it. Now they're just going to be destroyed, because I don't think he's going to leave anything useful that like an undestroyed world. Yep. Fuck, man. I wasn't expecting Amaris to outdo 40K in brutality.
Defensive positions with years of enhanced fortifications. The SLDF quickly jumped on these undefended worlds, glad to gain ground with no loss of fleet resources. Unfortunately, even with this new gain of ground, it was there that the invasion hit a snag. Losses to ships and personnel were piling up. Surviving in newly functioning Star League bureaucracy was having massive issues upkeeping Kerensky's forces.
Oh, so he actually didn't just destroy the worlds flat out. I'm actually surprised about that. Like, I legitimately thought the next sentence Tex was going to say is, and then he nuked them entirely and lit the atmosphere on fire with enough fireballs to do that. To be fair, that's actually one of the things they worried about when the I think it was the hydrogen bombs went off, that they would actually reach the temperature to ignite the atmosphere of a planet. They didn't. But with enough of them, you probably could. I was honestly expecting that to be the next sentence, that he literally lit atmospheres on fire to destroy worlds. He didn't. I'm actually surprised. So instead he took and he left the non-productive things to further drain resources.
Further, the massively reinforced SDS systems were nearly impenetrable. The war had destroyed cities and populations in the crossfire. Millions of people were starting to call for the general's head for the destruction he had wrought up to this point. Many more millions were dead and cold on the ground. Kerensky decided to halt the campaign while the SLDF rested. There would be no fighting for months as new bases were built. Supplies were stockpiled,
and further slowing
forces
it down.
rested, weapons repaired, and the problem of the SDS systems yet to be overcome. This would be an opportunity for the SLDF to regroup and prepare for the final push to Terra. Worlds began the slow process of healing, doing their best to overcome massive infrastructure damage. Soon, Kerensky had another issue. Fucking Kurita. House Kurita had been a thorn in the side of Kerensky from...
God damn it. And suddenly, I think I understand why everyone likes to just shit on this house. I've heard there are a couple novels written from their perspective, and it's like, maybe not all evil, incompetent monsters. And Tex just proved, no, most of them definitely are. Yeah, I want to say this surprises me. I want to say one of the houses jumping in a little early to just try and, hey, what would happen if we just poked the bear? Poked the angry Russian bear who's currently stamping on the guy we don't really like, but we're going to just let them beat each other up. What if we made sure that they both failed? I don't think Kurita is helping Amaris. I think they're explicitly hindering Kerensky. And I don't even know what they're about to do. But I know for a fact it's going to be asshole-ish and ultimately counterproductive because I know what comes after this. not so much with the SODF. I know it stops and they leave. I don't know how. We're going to get there later, apparently. But I know the succession wars come next. And this is basically Kurita going, hey, do you want to be awesome if maybe we were the emperor next? Yeah. I'm sure that's the thought process involved behind whatever they're about to do that's incredibly stupid. And unfortunately believable, because this is something that happens when the people you're not really allies with, who are kind of doing the thing to the other guys you're not really allies with, are about to win and then take power, and you're like, maybe it should be me. Why not Kurita? I hate it because it makes sense, and I should have seen this coming, because it's not inexplicable. It's not surprising. I'm just kicking myself right now because this should have been the thing I was expecting. I even commented before that, hey, everyone hates Kurita. And I'm like, yeah, they should. They really should. God damn it. So that was fuck Kurita. I mean, the Amaris Civil War. And we're still moving into it, but things that were bad that I thought were ultimately worse got worse than I even thought. And in perfectly understandable ways that annoy me because they're perfectly understandable. Yeah. This is hard to watch because you're just watching a good man being held up by his own good impulses that aren't even wrong and being taken advantage of someone who has literally no compunction against any atrocity. And I mentioned in previous videos, asymmetric warfare was the way to go here. I wasn't expecting Amaris to be the one to do it by taking full advantage of the fact that he doesn't give a damn about what he controls. He's basically doing a siege mentality here, and we knew that. It's been obvious. He's been planning for that. That's part of his plan that hasn't gone awry. Unlike attacking the Rimworld Republic, which honestly in hindsight kind of makes sense, but I could see why everyone was focusing on, hey, take the gold. And now we're seeing that not only that, but he's just willing to fuck over everything in the process. I'm not surprised. And I knew he was this kind of person. It's the difference between knowing it and then having text just put it out there in your face. And you're like, yeah, you knew he was bad. You're right. It's just, it's frustrating. Fiction is annoying me because it's well done. Damn it. Basically what I'm saying is Tex is doing a great job at showing just how frustrating and annoying this entire process of failure is, because you know it's not going to end well and you want it to work, but it's not. And this is just hammering home probably why Kerensky is leaving, because he knows what's about to happen, because Kurita's doing this now. Damn it. So if you haven't already, there's a link below to the original videos. Hit them up. They're down below. Do that. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to say just how deep this rabbit hole goes. And by deep, I mean, yeah, things are going to go bad. I don't even know how bad. And I'm assuming whatever I'm thinking right now, it's probably not enough, because that's been kind of the case this entire time. Again, links below. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.